How's it going, folks? It's been a fat minute, and I missed you. As you can see, I got this fancy microphone now, which I was going to use to record my first podcast episode, which was going to be titled The Fungal Inception. But I got like 30 minutes into 4 different versions of the first episode, and even though that was enough material to compile into an episode, it wasn't coherent, and I realized I can't talk for an hour plus and maintain a coherent line of subject matter. It's just something I'm not quite good at enough at yet to do a podcast. So I'm just going to stay on this format until I can actually extend my stamina for talking about stuff like this. So, that being said, I'm back. I thought about it, and I just haven't even had inspiration to make a video in a long time. It's something I really actually like to do and express my opinions no matter who's listening, just to get them onto the internet, have them out there so I know at least they're accessible. But I think enough time's gone by with all this drama that I can finally kind of think clearly and get off the subject of all the drama. I think some of us are getting tired of it, even though it is a real issue and people need help in places. I obviously don't have the power to help them or do anything about it right now. And every time I try to use my voice to better the situation, I just get kind of attacked. And that's a strong word for what happens because it's just internet stuff. It doesn't bother me, but it's just kind of like I'm so misunderstood. I think the only place I'm going to find people who understand what I'm saying is like-minded people that are looking for the same type of answers. And this is going to be that place. Maybe other platforms in the future, but I have a different idea for a video, a different approach to a series of videos that I think I'm going to create, and that I'm going to create. I mean, that I want to create. I just don't know how many videos it's going to be to get all the information there. And I already had this one idea to try to perfectly express to you through a series of videos and different little pieces here and there, but it's like I've spent so long researching that you'd have to literally see everything I've seen to totally agree with me. And that was kind of what I was attempting, but it's just not going to work that way. So I thought it may be a better idea. I'm going to prove to you what I'm talking about. And how do I do that? I'm going to tell you, I'm going to express to you the basic thoughts and principles that my mind operates on, some things that I just think I know, and then I'm going to, over the course of time, just grab random things off of the internet, and I'm not going to choose what those things are. I'm going to let them be random. And together, knowing what we know already, all of the decoding becomes aware. All of the stuff that we may have missed is just so plainly there. Everything seems tied in and connected to it. So, that leads me to the point of this first video in the series, the grand conspiracy. And now, I've been called a conspiracy theorist in my time for sure, but I don't actually consider myself one because there's a lot of conspiracy theories that I don't believe in or take part in. I only really care about the ones that are convincing to me or that aren't shown enough attention. And this one is one that I haven't really heard of before, and I haven't gone looking for it, but it's what I see in the media and the news and even in the education system, all of this stuff together. So let me explain. I started listening to a guy named Jordan Peterson years ago, and I had kind of found out through YouTube suggested videos about him from listening to Terrence McKenna. Terrence McKenna talks a lot about psychedelics and hallucinations and all kinds of stuff. Well, turns out that Jordan Peterson talks a lot about psychedelics, and some of those videos led me to him. And I immediately knew how smart he was and how correct he was in a lot of his psychedelic opinions because of my experiences, my learnings, all of the stuff, the shamanic relation to it. I mean, he just nails it. As if he's taken psilocybin mushrooms 100 times himself, and he just doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would do that. And maybe I'm wrong. But, I mean, he's definitely probably has, but I don't know about a frequent user of these things. So he goes on to say that he really knows all this stuff through reading the literature inside and out of all of the psychologists that came before him, all of the people, the giants that he stands on the backs of, he gives full credit to and says he read it all and formed his own opinions, but gives you all the options to decide for yourself. And not one time did I ever hear him sound ignorant, narcissistic. I never heard him sound, uh, you know, redundant even. I've only ever heard him sound confident, realistic, and almost uncomfortably honest. And that's kind of what we need in the world today, is someone to quit buttering our balls, quit telling us what we want to hear, and give us the actual solutions to the problems that we face, if that's what we really want. To abandon this idea of illusionary progressive nature and actually take a progressive route ourselves into our own hands. So, through listening to him, I actually felt like I agreed a lot with this guy. And then as I learned more about him, I found out that he had basically been fired from his job, or stepped down, one of the two, as a professor at Harvard in Canada. He taught psychology, and eventually the students became so antagonistic toward him that he was forced out of the school, and he refused to use gender fluid pronouns once they were compelled by law. And his argument, which I totally agree with, was that it's against free speech. He says, look, there's a level I'm willing to accept of what I can't say as hate speech or whatever, but you can't tell me what I have to say. That falls under the lines of compelled speech, and these people can't mandate and dictate this whole new way of speaking that hasn't existed just because they feel like it. It's based upon their feelings and their offensive nature. And this is all rooted into the way what they've chosen for their life or how they've been born. Now, none of us have ever had the ability to change the government or politics based on how we felt because of our inconvenient upbringings. It's never been an option for anyone else. It's not that they're just a more protected class of citizens these days, and that government and policies have to be based around marginalized people, I guess. It doesn't actually make sense because you don't govern around the marginalized. It's just going to cause you to have really laws that are ineffective because they don't actually address the general concerns. Okay. So, I felt bad for this dude because I knew he was smart, and I knew he was honest, and I knew he was caring, and I knew he was helping people, but yet everything I saw in the media was lying and attacking this man, calling him a Nazi, racist, bigot. I've never heard anything ignorant, like I said, come out of his mouth. All you have to do is listen to him for 10 minutes to know it's a lie. But people heard the rumors before they heard him speak, and then they believed that if they were associated or caught associating with him or watching him, that they would also be grouped against the majority and be called a Nazi and a bigot and a racist. And this is not true. This is a psychological tactic to get you to not hear the smart people. And you're asking me why, Luke? Why does this matter? Because the plan from a decade ago was to marginalize us, divide us, organize us, label us, and to start rearranging history and society in a way that makes us completely manipulatable and controllable. And I'm not talking about like so you can feel like a god. I'm talking about so a system that is currently existing that rotates these people in power to stay in power based on families, probably. Not the government, not the people in government. They're going to die. They're going to grow old and die. And their kids aren't going to have the credentials in every case to take their place. It's not necessarily a provable scam. But there are people above the government. There are people that own resources. There are very powerful, strong people that own buildings and land and properties and businesses upon properties and businesses. And they have so much money that their influence spreads across the planet, and that their influence is deep and into politics and government. So, what do they do? Why do they care? Do they ever die? Of course they do, but their sons and daughters inherit their wealth. Their families inherit their wealth, and they've inherited their entire wealth and lifestyle from their forefathers. So what are they going to do but perpetuate this system that allows their family to stay in control and to stay monopolizing every kind of anything that they can get their hands on? And of course, might get old for one guy in one lifetime, but every new generation that's inducted into this process is going to have a whole nother lifetime of corruption behind it. So I believe that there are people in power politically that align themselves with these people in order to gain a more ignorant and a more controllable public in the future. They're playing a long game, and they're wanting us to be dumbed down now, and they're wanting us to be brainwashed now, because they know not everybody's going to accept it. But if they can get the majority to accept it, then another 10 years down the road, they'll have filtered and weeded out all of those who would have rebelled. So it started in the universities. There were not professors alone, but even board members of these universities that I believe were hand selected and placed there. Now, that's just my opinion because of the way it seems. You can go and look this up, and this is the kind of stuff I'm saying is random that I can't know or control. You can go look up who put those professors and board members there, but they can't have been there for a very long time. A lot of them are young and very progressive. And if you ever heard of the Lindsay Shepherd case, where she she purposefully, but she didn't even intentionally expose students at the school to Jordan Peterson. She exposed them to a range of viewpoints, Jordan Peterson's being one of them, which was a few-minute clip. And when the board members found out that she had showed students in a university a clip of something on YouTube, they threatened to expel her from the school if she did it again. And she got it all on recording, and it was totally illegal, and they got in trouble for it, and it became a big deal. But you probably didn't hear about it because it was against the mainstream viewpoint. It was against what the media wanted you to hear. You know what you did hear about was the girl with the mattress on her back that ended up later totally exaggerating the situation. You heard a lot about that. So we go on to Ben Shapiro, and that might not be a name you like, but that's part of the conspiracy. Okay, so I started listening to Ben Shapiro also. And that kind of got me into the political side because I just kept searching until I found people that didn't sound like idiots, until I found people that were using logic and reasoning and objective nature and putting aside what they wanted and their feelings and their pride to look and cut through the bullshit and say what's really happening here politically, progressively, economically. So I would listen to Ben, and he would so clearly say obviously true things. There's a quote by Terence McKenna that says, if you hear something true and you understand it, you'll believe it. And it is true. It's just a result of misunderstanding and miscommunication that we ever express things to each other and don't get it. Because we're constantly in agreement, all wanting basically the same thing, love, acceptance, and good nature and kindness. And if you don't, then you're just plain evil. And if we realized that we all wanted that, then we'd realize that we were saying the same things back and forth to each other all the time and just misunderstanding each other. So I listened to Ben, and I listened to his coherent, non-ignorant, borderline genius points about some of this stuff. His bold nature to go in and face the backlash for saying actual factual statistics. And then what does I keep wanting to say politics instead of media. What does the media call him? They call him a Nazi, a racist, and a bigot. Meanwhile, he's Jewish. Meanwhile, he holds almost none of the same political standings as Jordan Peterson. Now, they're friends, They know each other, they talk, they relate. Not on politics, but on the hate by the media. And why are these two people grouped together at all? Why do Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson got to hang out when they don't agree politically? And how are they able to, as opposed to everyone else who can't even get along? Because they're both saying things that are right, and they're not on the same part of the political spectrum, but they both have to be shut out of this argument because they have cases, and the media and politics doesn't want you to hear them. They want the first word you ever hear about them is to be that they're racist, bigot assholes that are fascists and are against free speeches, and that they're actually part of the patriarchy. It's fucking bullshit. They want freedom for you. They want freedom for me. They've never said anything stupid that I've ever heard. They use logical sound reasoning, and people's brains a lot of times can't even process what they're saying at such a high rate and an intellectual volume that they just chalk it up to agreeing with people on whatever they're saying. Oh, they're just trying to trigger you. No, they're not. You just get triggered at things you can't understand. That's the basic layout of it right there. And especially when there's no argument and there's no rebuttal, you just say, well, you're just a racist Nazi bigot, and that's the end of it. So you have to be wrong. It goes on and on. There are more people that I listen to, like Steven Crowder. Steven Crowder, again, he does have a political viewpoint, and he's not quite as non-biased as Jordan or Ben Shapiro, but he offers both sides of the story in every case. He offers you the actual statistics on paper. He offers you the sources of where he gets them from. He goes out into public with his platform to millions of people and offers you a chance to change his mind about what he's thinking. This is completely open-minded free speech idea, you know? Then the first thing you saw of Steven was the change my mind thing of him sitting smugly at a table. And the change my mind meme began to mean you can't change my mind. It meant, here's my opinion, change my mind, like try and change my mind. That's not what it ever meant. He set that table up to give people an honest chance to change his mind, and every one of them has failed against his logic. That's just how it's happened so far, and the media had to turn that around and make him look like a bad guy. He's the one who tested if Epstein could have actually killed himself. Go watch the Did Epstein Kill Himself Steven Crowder video. These are people who are actually putting themselves in harm's way, whether it be literally, physically, or just internet, their reputation in harm's way, in order to try and get you factual statistics, unbiased opinions, just real information that's been handed down through psychologists, through political, scientists, through all this stuff. And they're trying to get it to you, and there's a giant filter between you and that, which is the echo chamber you create on social media to only hear people that agree with you, the channels that you choose to watch on TV to only hear things that you agree with. It's not that I'm singling you out as a listener, because I don't know you. You could be just like me. But I'm speaking in this term just to speak to the people that know. And when they hear it, they're going to feel the guilt, and they're going to want to think I'm a bad guy for pointing it out. And there's nothing that I've said against anyone specifically. Like I said, I don't know you. But if you feel that guilt, it's probably a little trigger that you should research more and hear the other viewpoint and feel more confident about your opinion and not the opinion that you regurgitate from hearing someone who you thought was smart. Because that is not going to win you the battle. If you're right, you're a majority of one. So, going along, just take that into consideration, that there's a grand conspiracy to brainwash the public in the next decade by getting to the young people first, going to the universities and placing progressive-minded young board members into these situations where they can basically filter out the type of political ideas that they want to be allowed to compete in these universities. These are accredited schools. These are the big universities, Ivy League, okay? Who cares? Universities are the place where ideas are supposed to battle. And you know what? In a battle of ideas, you know who comes out on top? The best idea. If you leave out other ideas, it's because you're threatened by them. Because if you really thought they were bad ideas, you would have no problem in letting them compete with ideas that you believed in. Take that. Free speech is important, whether it be hateful or not, because that is how society updates itself. You have to at least hear a viewpoint that you did not consider in order to consider that it is valid and you have never heard it. Even if it is something hateful, that is easily dismissed. But to throw out all free speech and all offensive free speech for the sake of our feelings, for the sake of not wanting to be scared, for the sake of thinking that words hurt, this is ridiculous. What I was taught as a kid was sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, and I lived by it, and they never did. But now I'm exhausted. Now I've gone through and I've tried to say everything that I thought was important to say to people, and all I get back is that I'm some sort of idiot. That I don't understand, that I didn't do enough research. Well, I've been researching for years, motherfuckers. I've been reading and writing. I mean, I don't write shit that I don't learn from writing about shit, but I've done it all. I've been doing it all with my hands and my eyes and my brains. I don't want to say anything that I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't want to mislead you, misguide you in any way. It's not my goal. My goal is to open our eyes together to the possibility, to the reality that there are many other sides to this story, and that there are many other places that you can hear the unlikely story other than just the place that you first look, the place that appeals to you first, the place that gets to you first. You should always maintain ideological consistency by waiting and listening and deciding. It's not about wanting to be right, wanting to be on the winning side. It's about wanting a better future for each other and our children. So let's go into like some of the drama, like the race riots that are happening, right? There's the COVID and the race riots going down. Well, I can't say anything about COVID for sure yet, because even though we've all been wearing masks for months now, since January, and nobody's been sick since January, February, and the only places anyone's showing up sick of COVID is hospitals and old folks' homes. Then, and even those who test positive for COVID, that they either have gotten better and retested positive, or I mean, I've heard so many crappy stories about this stuff that there just doesn't seem to be any information that we can trust out there anymore about it. So I don't have a valid opinion. But as far as the race riots go, this is the topsy-turvy day, and I talked about it in the last video I made. This is a day in which things are represented in their opposite nature in order to manipulate us as people into thinking something. So if I was black and I grew up my whole life being black, every time I was treated unkindly and unfairly, I could have chalked it up to that person being racist. And I've been treated unkindly and unfairly even by police officers in my life. I mean, countless times. Just in the area of Springfield in my hometown, countless times. Then I would always think that I had something to prove and something to redeem and some way to get back at the man for all of the times he'd kept me down. But that I don't have that option because I'm not a black American. So what do I say? I just say, well, I have to take responsibility for all the times I made mistakes, and I have to try and not make those mistakes again. So it's a vicious cycle, you know. Now if I look at some of these rioters and some of these looters and some of these black American rioters and looters, and they're burning down black businesses and hurting black people, and I go, now you've forfeited the reason that you're out here. You've used it as an excuse to come and take things that you think you deserve based on no logical reasoning anymore except for that you're black. So what does it mean to a young generation of people when they're watching black Americans destroy property and the black Americans claim that it's because of their race? You have just created racism. You have just inadvertently created racism. You said, I'm black, I'm destroying your property because I'm black. And you're doing this in an attempt to abolish racism. You know, these statues of all of these Confederate heroes, so quote-unquote Confederate heroes, they're commemorative statues of history. You know what I'm saying? If we don't acknowledge that it happened, we can't move past it. Just as much, tearing those statues just as much is going to make people forget about the overcoming of slavery, just as much as it's going to make them forget, just as much as it's going to make them remember that it ever existed, okay? There will be no proof that we overcame it. You know that the United States is the only country that's ever went to war for black people to free their black people. We're the only country who's ever done that. And of course you could argue that there were other reasons for the war. But it's just the fact that the statistics alone show we're the only ones that have ever done that, and you need to take that into consideration when you think about what a racist country we are. So, why would they want to perpetuate racism? Obviously, to continue to brainwash us into playing this political game, to keep us separated, to keep us marginalized. This is fascism. Guess who else labeled people? Guess who else said that there were people that were the problem with society? Guess who else was one of the most powerful nations in the world with all the artillery? It was the fascist, wasn't it? Why is this attempt at socialist progressivism, whatever you want to call these isms, why does it look so much like communist fascism? Why does it feel so much like that? Wear a mask. Don't go here. Don't stand this close to this person. And that's not on the race riots. But then it's like, look, you're black, you're white. That person's the problem. Go fight that person. Oh, now it's the cops that are the problem. Kill the cops because they killed you. You never do that. Have you ever seen one kung fu movie? That true honor and morality is about not lowering yourself to the same standards that your enemies do. I've heard people on tape say, they've been killing ours, so we're going to kill some of theirs. That doesn't make any fucking sense. That means you're just the same. It means you're just the same, and you're using it as an excuse to retaliate. Whether you be black or white. There's no race in that statement. I'm just saying it's antagonism that just perpetuates, it escalates the whole situation. So what do I say is the solution? What do we say is the solution? To defend each other. To defend each other. I will defend you, and you defend me. I'll quit trying to defend myself, and you quit trying to defend yourself, and us make ourselves look so defensive. You know what I'm saying? Let's just defend each other and worry about our own mistakes. In life, we don't get a lot of chances to do something good. We don't get a lot of chances to make a better world for ourselves and for the future. And I think people want to be a part of something so badly, and they want to matter so badly and have a legacy, that just being part of something that they think is the winning side of a battle is good enough for them, and they'll damn near fight to the death, and they won't even hear any reason or logic. The best way to prove that you're right is to let what you believe in fight for itself, is to let what you believe in prove itself, to be self-evident, to put your money where your mouth is, to walk the way you talk, all that stuff. It's not happening. We're just doing a lot of talking and none of the walking. And the ones walking, they're not the ones that we need walking. It's just doesn't make sense today. And if I was there and if I had the opportunity, I would totally go out there and try to help. But at some point in the last couple months, I feel like words, I become exhausted because it just doesn't feel like words are making an impact anymore. It just doesn't feel like people can comprehend and differentiate truth from lies anymore. They don't even care to know. They don't even care to try. It's too much work. It's too much mental energy. They just want to not think about it. And they want to listen to the government and to people who have never showed us yet any sign, any proof, any reason, any consistency. It's like it really is topsy-turvy day for me. I just don't understand. It's like this world that I believed in, that there were people like me out there and that we were all going to change it for the better and that evil wasn't going to win, Irene. I've always believed that. And now in this last while, it feels like they're really in the lead. And let me give you an example before I end this video of what gave me this idea. I was listening to a Dan Harmon podcast. It's episode 54 of Harmontown. And I was listening to him just talk about not being a Nazi and about Nazis and how so many people have a hard time saying they're not a Nazi, and how he's like, it's just a thing you do. It's just a thing you have to do now, and blah, blah, blah. He goes, and I hate those people, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And I go, wow, meanwhile, here you are discussing what not a Nazi you are, while you speak so hatefully about people you don't even know. And while you convince a crowd so fervently with your orations. And meanwhile, you're talking about how hard you need to try to show people that you're not a Nazi. And that was years ago possibly. And now just recently, Dan Harmon's getting canceled by people that believe he's a pedophile or that he's promoting pedophilic nature because of a funny skit he made a long time ago. That's right. I'll say it's funny. I'll say it's funny. So what does he do? In this old Harmontown, he tells them, go get him. Go find him. Go make them say they're not a Nazi. You are doing the thing that's bit you in the ass, Dan Harmon. You have convinced people that they're right morally, even though what was their goal? To make people say they're not a Nazi? That's fascism. That's compelled speech. You've convinced people of fascism, and to go find the people that are the supposed fascists and go change their minds by force. You are the Hitler, Dan Harmon. And I heard another, and I love Dan Harmon. I'm just saying, in this topsy-turvy day, you have to be careful not to become the monsters you're hunting. I heard another podcast tonight. What was he even talking about? I forgot already my point, but anyways, it's like, if you get this idea in your head and you start looking at the world based on that idea, that confirmation bias is going to make you see whatever you want. But in this next series of videos I make, I'm going to outline just an opinion that is not based on any media. And then whenever I outline that opinion, I'll just pull random media that I can't control, like trending YouTube videos of the day or whatever. And you're going to see how everything is just set up exactly. And I'm not trying to... This whole thing sounds like I want you to think like I think. I'm just trying to think of a way to prove to you that there is something underlying this whole thing that connects the race riots to the corona bullshit, to the politics with Trump, to all of the cancel culture. It's all connected. It's all a part of a change that's being taken place, a control, monopolization through the internet, through people above the government. I am not threatened by our government. I haven't seen anything that they've ever done right. I'm threatened by our military. I'm threatened by the people who decided to put government there. I'm threatened by the ancient families that have lived here for thousands and millions of years, that have handed down their wealth one after another, and somehow nobody knows where they are anymore. There's always been people on this planet. Somebody got here first. Somebody set up all this scam and has been working with it and just feeding off of it for decades and generations and generations. And now we can point them out. Now we can find them. We have the internet. We have the common sense. We know basic philosophy. We know that we have the technology to feed everyone. We know that we have the technology to heal the earth. If we put the time and resources into it, we do not need to keep giving bajillions of dollars to the military. We do not need to keep discussing where our money goes and where it needs to go while we're giving half of it to the military. Wake up and stop listening to the news. Stop listening to your social media. Just put it down for a second. Live life. Observe what's happening in reality around you. Form your opinion based around that. Expand your consciousness a little bit. Like, let some of that in. Get on some of that news site. Get some of it. But as soon as you want to make an opinion, go research the other half. Go research the other side of what people are saying on the other side. Go research the history of why it happened. Because before you go and make a point about it, before you go and try to talk about it, at least confidently know what you're talking about. Just so that way when you approach someone who has a counterpoint, you can just counterpoint that counterpoint confidently, and maybe that person will see, oh, I didn't know that thing that you just said. And that happens to me all the time. And it allows me to grow in my understanding, in my open-mindedness continually. So even when I'm wrong, I'm happy because I find out that I'm wrong. And that's how we all should feel. So stay tuned, my friends, and thank you for listening. If you made it all the way through this video, I love you. I love you, and I love everyone's. And I want us all to love each other's, full of our love and lovingness. Thank you.